Town Center Committee and your Select Board. Other members that you should know are tonight from the Town Center Committee. We have Alicia Muck, raise your hand please, who's the Vice Chair, and Bill Hanson, who's a member. A couple members of the Select Board. We've got Jeff Williams back there and Katie Young. We've got our, and Heather Monroe is sitting down. Sorry, Heather, didn't see you. And we've got David Nixon, our acting town administrator, and a few other town committee representatives here as well. And then we have our engineering firm, TEC, with Jonathan Rockwell, Lori Aho, and John Shikes, who've been working with us for a while. So the way this is going to work, sort of start off with just sort of a brief history, pretending like nobody knows anything about the project. Back in September of 2015, the Select Board started up the Town Center Committee. So there were originally 10 of us. There are now 8 of us. We've been an active committee for 6+ years, which is about as long as you'll ever see a committee formed like that be active for. Which basically I'm just outlining that to show you how long of a process it is. From inception, our first meeting of pie in the sky, what are we even doing here? What are we designing? What do we ask for? Who do we talk to? All those sorts of things, to our first ask at town meeting in 2016, which was to engage a firm for just a schematic design, which cost about $20,000, for what a new town center, new Main Street might look like. So we put that out as we need to for requests for proposals. TEC was one of the respondees on it. We got maybe a dozen or so. We shortlisted, which is basically paring down the original list to 3 or 4, like you do in these things. Interviewed them as well as a few others, and ended up selecting them to be our partner in this, which was our out of all of the choices we've made, our best choice that we've made throughout the process. They've been with us for these 5+ years. In helping us and being patient with us for unreasonable requests, I'm sure, and a lot of the things that we didn't know as we came across the process and down the road here. So the reason I'm saying that is, many of the questions you may have are ones we had, which maybe felt like we were asking dumb questions. There aren't any, and I know those things are said so often in environments like this, but it's really true. Like, that's why I'm going through the whole history here. We understand that it's everyone's property. It's in front of your house and all that. And some of us have been living this for 5 or 6 years, so we know a lot of these answers, right? But don't I know you won't because you're here, but don't hesitate to ask a question that you need to know an answer about, right? That's why we're here tonight. This is why we've done it. We've done a few of these over the years, and I know there are people new to town, and also fully engaged, and when you get something in the mail, especially, right, it's like, oh, it's coming. So I'll give you a little bit of additional quick history of where we're at in the process, and then I'll turn it over to TEC. We're going to sort of do a brief presentation. So after this original schematic design, to basically take the temperature of the town and take the temperature of the Select Board on moving forward with, can we do this? We don't think we can afford, because of the tax revenues we have in town, based on residential versus commercial. We've all heard it a million times, to be able to pay for something like this ourselves. So we looked into the different options for that, and the option that seemed most viable was for the state transportation, the TIP program, to be able to pay for this sort of thing. But the town has to pay for the design, the engineering design for it. So over the next several years, we went to town meeting to ask the town to pay for additional pieces and parts to get this through the process. And what those pieces and parts came from was the Mass DOT, who decided they were going to take our project, which was a huge thing in the first place, and then there are certain milestones you have to hit, things they call 25% design, or 50% design, or 75% design, those sorts of things. We didn't ask for all the money at once because we didn't need to, and it was still a lot of money. So we asked for what we needed to get to each phase of work after getting pricing and negotiation with TEC to get to those points, and then started slowly checking off the boxes, moving across. At this point, we've spent the towns probably around somewhere between $350,000 and $400,000 of the town's money over 6 years for design, because that's what it costs to design a project as large as this, a generational project like this. And at all times, we had in our minds, as far as a master plan, with the trunk corridor coming through Route 68 from Gardner to Rutland. As you know, a couple years ago, we did the southern portion. Last year, we did the northern portion, and this is to connect all of that. So originally, all we were going to have was a design that would encompass from Elm Street, which goes down by the school, up to the bank, right? So that was going to be our first, our area that we were going to deal with. However, Mass DOT came to us and said, hey, we're paying for these other sections, the north and south sections of Route 68. We don't have enough money to do that whole north section, so can you add to the already approved town center project the area from the bank to the rec field? So that's why this project, as you'll see tonight, and as it's designed and approved and will be constructed, is from Elm Street all the way to the rec field, because basically they pushed it off a year. They didn't have enough money in that fiscal year to do the north section of Route 68, and they said, can we put it, of course, right? What are we going to say? But that increased our cost a little bit for design, because obviously we had to have these guys do additional sidewalks and drainage and pavement investigation and all the things that come in with this. So a big reason why we're here tonight is the final thing that we need to do before this gets constructed is we need to get all of yours permission. And there are different permissions. We'll go into some of the details of that. And as you've seen by correspondence you've received in the mail, there is a right-of-way is the term that'll be used a lot tonight. And what that is the area that's required to construct the corridor of Main Street as it's designed on here to be in accordance with all of the Mass DOT regulations, the widths, the setbacks, the sidewalk sizes, the bike lane, all the things that are required to be part of the design for us to get funded. So a lot of these things, we had input on as a town center committee and select board and all that, but a lot of them are required to be in there based on what Mass DOT says. If we're going to give you this money, there are certain things you have to do to make it a transportation approved project. So that'll be the answer a few times, and just sort of preparing you for that. So the right-of-way piece of this is there are lots of properties, 51 I think, that go through the entire corridor that we're talking about here, a number of which are owned by the town. So the town also has to sort of understand what's happening in front of these, like the school and library and things like that, to be able to understand it. So we have the same review time as you do to understand what's happening in front of these places, to be able to see whether we have any questions, if it's going to affect how the kids are going in somewhere, or how crosswalks are going to go. All that sort of stuff falls into effect there. So again, I know that was sort of a lot of information to say all at once, but I think understanding the sort of full history of where we're at, and the many hours that have been spent, not just TEC designing it, but from town employees and town volunteers to sort of get to this point. So that's sort of the prep here, and I want to turn it over to TEC to go through this for us a little bit. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Dan, and thanks to the town for inviting us, David, here to speak to you this evening. I'm just going to go over a brief. I know a lot of you are already in the design public hearing. You've seen the plans. You know what's going on. But just to give you a brief overview of the project before we break out into groups to go over the right-of-way plans and some of the construction plans that we have before you. So, as Dan mentioned, project location. Route 62 being at the Curtis Rec Field, which is right here. Going down Gardner Road, includes the intersection of High Street and Williamsville Road, continuing on and ending at the intersection of Brigham Street and Elm Street and Worcester Road, and it's approximately 1.8 miles, so a roadway. And this is just an illustration of some of our proposed improvements. So again, beginning at the Curtis Rec Field, we're proposing a new crosswalk with a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, which is you push the button and the signs light up. Sidewalks on both sides of the roadway through this stretch with bike lanes on the roadway. Pavement resurfacing with new striping and signage. And just as you get past the Curtis Rec Field, we begin with a shared use path with the grass strip on the side of the roadway, which is the easterly side. Continuing on, another RFB here, and then that's where we begin a shared use path on grass buffer on the other side of the roadway. So continuing on, again, shared use path on both sides of the roadway as we approach the intersection of Williamsville Road and High Street. Restriping and signage and new pavement. And as we get to the intersection, we're doing some reconstruction of the intersection itself. We're realigning the Williamsville Road to provide improved sight distance and to reduce the crosswalk length across Williamsville Road. We're doing another crosswalk here, just at High Street. And here we're actually doing a full depth pavement reconstruction, which means we'll be ripping up the entire road, putting all brand new pavement down there. And again, another crosswalk with an RFB just on the east side of Lowell Road. And then to this last stretch, again, both shared use path on the southerly side in front here, just as approaching the Elm Street intersection, and a sidewalk on the northerly side. Bike lane on the northerly side in lieu of the shared use path. Crosswalk with RFB just here, west of the Brigham Street Elm Street intersection. And then we end our limit of work at the Brigham Street and Elm Street intersection here. So this is just some artistic renderings, before and after. This is a current picture of what Main Street looks like today. And this is what we envision Main Street will look like in the future. This is the RFB that I was pointing out earlier, and a crosswalk across here. Here you'll see a shared use path and a sidewalk on this side. And so by shared use path, what that means essentially is it's wide enough for both bicyclists and pedestrians to use it. So as Dan mentioned, we're here tonight because we're here to talk to everybody about the right-of-way process. You're all here because you received information regarding easements, temporary easements, permanent easements in front of your properties. So that's why we're here tonight. So as Dan said, the town is responsible for acquiring any and all rights of in the public land for design, construction, and implementation of the project. All affected property owners, which is everybody here, has been contacted by certified mail with a letter of intent. Town is also responsible for encroachments within the right-of-way, meaning if you have any items that are in the right-of-way that's privately owned, the town will be reaching out to you as well to get a license for that privately owned item. Then where we are tonight, the town's going to meet with all the property owners, with us, to discuss the property impacts. And just that all the procedures that you hear tonight and that we're following must comply with all state and federal regulations governing the acquisition process. And their property owners are all protected under the Massachusetts general laws. And that's the end of our presentation, but again, thank you everybody for coming here this evening. And at this time, we're gonna have 3 tables set up, here, here, and here. Members from TEC will be at each of those tables to answer your questions, go over the plans, and the town will also be coming around to answer the questions you may have.
All right, let me just, thank you very much,
Yeah.
Lori. So, we do want to open it up because in case there are some general questions, one second, let me just get this out here. So if there are any general questions to start, as Lori just said, there's some sort of breakout tables, which are the best way to be able to sort of look at the plan, open it up. This is my property, this is what's going to happen, these are the questions I have. But right now, any general questions, about this, probably not specifically about your own wall, Lou, but I'm just kidding. But feel free. But still, does anyone have any general questions? We'll take those now. Go ahead.
When is the tentative start date for this?
Yes, good question.
So the project is scheduled to be advertised on June 4th. So it'll be a little while because it takes time. They put out the advertisement, then they get the bids in, then they have to review the bids. They'll choose a contractor. So probably very earliest will be the fall of next year.
So is this, so fall of next year, so it won't be completed before the snow falls?
Correct.
That's correct. It'll be time.
So
This, good.
we're gonna have downtown all dug up and.
We aren't. So what I think is going to happen is it does take a while. I'm in construction. We do Mass DOT projects. If it's advertised like Lori said in June, early June, the bid process takes a month, and then the award process. There's a Mass DOT selection committee or approval committee that has to go through to approve it. I actually think by the fall we're probably just going to be setting up all the signage and infrastructure and doing any sort of upfront work that needs to get done, contractor submittals, work plans, all the things, acquisition of materials, approvals, all that sort of stuff. So we're not actually gonna rip it all up before the winter, because that doesn't make sense. So the
Like
actual,
closing the bridge down on 62 right before the winter last year?
yeah, that was on purpose, just to bring up during meetings like this tonight. Emergency basis. We don't have an emergency basis on Main Street that we're gonna be
So
running into.
in reality, spring of 2023 would be the actual tearing up of everything then?
That's right, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
And we fall into, they have, which we attend. This TIP program has a certain amount of money they spend each year, and then they have, and I think Alicia's been to a couple of these where they're just trying to fit in projects all through Central Mass, where they can, the Regional Planning Commission tries to fit these in, and we got bumped up. We thought it was gonna be a little bit more into the future, and we've been very active. Our highway director, Travis Brown's been very active in it as well, and we've been doing all the things we're supposed to, which is getting the design to the points it's supposed to be. And our next goal and our next requirement is to get the right-of-way process figured out and to the point where we've checked that box so that they can finally and formally approve it and put it out to bid. So it's in the town's very much interest to answer all questions and get things figured out so that we can do that. And just one more thing about the total value. So the project value is in the 5 million range?
It is, it's 5.3.
Okay, so this is a
approximately.
big project that we're not paying for. You know, there's some additional costs with TEC that we've got either not expended yet or a little bit more to spend, but overall, 90-some-odd% of what we're gonna spend as a town on this project has already been spent. Sir?
Matt Hopkins and 4 Williamsville Road. I think it's a great project. I'm looking forward to it. And whatever you guys need from me, with the easements and so forth, I'm ready to donate. So.
Well, great, so that's another piece of this. So there are some options that you all have. And as Lori said on there at the bottom bullet of one of these slides, you're all protected by Mass General laws. Like, we're not that there's been very little opposition to this project for the last 6 years. Very little, just because it seems like a good idea to everybody. But everyone's protected, and no one's getting bullied. No one. So the point is you're going to have options to do what was stated there potentially, and what is the best option for the town, which is donations, because then we don't have to pay for it or go through a review process to seeing how much properties may be worth. So that we have to, it just takes more time. So it's easier for the town in that way. But there are other options that you can either ask us about, and your right is your right. So that's it. Any other general questions? Yes, sir.
They're gonna do anything with the speed limit?
What's that?
Are they gonna do anything with the speed limit?
Yeah, so you guys want to answer that? We had lots of discussions about speed
Come by
limits.
my house at 40, 50 all the time, so.
Yeah.
So we're not really changing the speed limit per se, but the whole point of our design is by putting the bike paths in and creating a better environment for people and increase the safety, it naturally will reduce the whole speeds along Main Street. And by putting the RFBs in as well, when activated, cars have to stop, so.
It's gonna be an accident over there, that's all I can say.
Right, and I think that's why by putting those RFDs in, we're trying to help prevent, an accident from happening, find a safer crossing for everybody.
One of the first things we did was to see what we needed to do to change the speed limit. So it's not our choice, it's the state's choice. We went back to, we found the files from the 50s when the speed limits were set along this road and other roads in town. And it's not something that we can just, there has to be a reason for it based on, you know, the density of housing, all these things. So we really looked into it, found out that 35 is the speed limit that is going to be maintained through there. But the term that's been used, that TEC taught us long ago, was traffic calming. And that's the best you can do. We talked about putting speed bumps, all these sorts of things, but, you know, after consultation with our highway director about plowing and lots of things, you know, didn't make a lot of sense. So what the intent is to make this a, you know, a legal but not really wide like it is passing corridor. So when you come from the south and you come from the north, it is the widths of the road sort of taper when you get to Main Street to show that you're no longer on this sort of freeway coming back and forth through. So we're going to have to see, and we're going to have to see what traffic reacts to, and what we're going to have to, you know, do as far as you know, the police department and all that regulating it. We don't know, but we talked a lot about it and did everything we can that we think made sense.
So like Dan said, the stuff of, you think about, we're not really making the driving lanes narrower, but it's things like having the bike lane and the parking so that you don't have this giant area on the side of the road where people feel like it's wider, so it makes it feel more narrow, so people feel like they have to slow down, that it's a real downtown area, that we're hoping that will help control some of it. We can't control human behavior, but we're hoping to help modify it.
We have, one second, Lou. So we have three of the town center members here tonight, town center committee. Alicia formerly was one of the residents on the town center. 3 or 4 that aren't here tonight are residents of the town center. We've got the Churchills, you've got Bill Homans, you've got Near Cohen, and that might be it, Brian's not on there. So anyway, so we've had people who have been talking about, are there going to be lights? Cars go by at 55 miles an hour. You know, all the questions that you guys would ask, committee members, at least half of our group asked for these 5 or 6 years. So those came up a lot too. Luke?
In front of the school, on the drawing, is there enough is there gonna be a parking lane for parent kid pickup
Yeah.
drop off?
So the parking is gonna be from the school, so it's like right by the building that's on the corner, so it starts right on the school side of that. So we're parking there. I believe it runs all the way up to the gas station.
We're gonna
So there'll be
So
a
there is
real
a parking lane.
There is, but
Yeah,
there's
'cause
a
shrinking everything up, it's like, you know, I mean, that line goes from the school to Mr. Mike's every day,
Yep.
you know, and so.
Yeah, and it's
you know,
making, because
we
even when
don't-
we did it, the state came back and said, you have a lot of trucks, the parking should actually be wider. So it's gonna be an actual width for like real parking vehicles as well.
And on a side note, I actually got permission finally on Halloween to start a fundraiser for 2 speed limits signs on each end of Main Street. That's, you know, say the speed limit and say slow down, et cetera, et cetera. They're the ones that I found that I like were $3,800 each, so it's like $7,600. I'm gonna privately fundraise it and donate them to the police department, and they're gonna get DPW to put them up. The pole right past my property is gonna have one, and then there's a brand new pole at the church coming southbound.
Okay.
So it'll light up and say slow down.
Great, and we had that, David, we had that come up at a select board meeting recently too. It was actually a town center committee member who brought it up too. Near Cohen brought it up, and we brought it up at the select board and had spoken to the police chief about it as well. So glad you're doing that, thank you. Ma'am? Oh, sorry.
I'm just gonna clarify, so in most areas along the corridor, that curb-to-curb width is actually narrowing up. So that's one traffic calming measure, which is kind of inherent in the uniformity of the new corridor from curb to curb.
One second, ma'am?
Lori kind of just wanted to, I kind of had the same question as with the school. I was concerned because I think already when that's in full, everybody picking up and
curb does bump out right by the gas station, those limits are from the gas station all the way up to the school, there's a parallel parking lane for, so the curb bumps out to accommodate, instead of a 4-foot shoulder, it'll be a 7 or an 8-foot shoulder for parking.
And then the walk on that side of the street, isn't that supposed to be a proposed 10-foot walk over there?
It is, so after the curb bumps out, there'll be a 5-foot grass buffer and then a 10-foot wide shade use path.
One of the, Mass DOT, who we had a number of meetings with as well throughout the process, the representative that we met with at the District 5 office is actually from Barry. And they had really thorough comments. Like, one of their first comments was that lane that we're leaving for parking on that side of the road isn't wide enough because so many people in Hubbardston have pickup trucks. I mean, so we literally changed the design because he was like, I know the area, that 5 feet, I can't remember what he said, 5 feet or 4 foot or 6 foot, whatever it was. It needs to be another foot because it's either, it's bigger vehicles out here. So, yeah, Al?
On the plan, have you gotten any idea if the higher quality road would increase vehicular traffic coming through the center of town?
Good question. We didn't. We did a traffic study. So we've done a few of them over the years on what comes north and what comes south. I don't know. We didn't do. I don't know how we do that actually. I don't know, Jonathan, if you've got any.
Yeah, I don't think there's a projection necessarily tied to the quality of the pavement in terms of the growth of traffic over time, but over time, I think we do predict that based on the traffic counts that the average growth will be more traffic over time slowly, but not necessarily related to the improvements to the road.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what about private wells? Are they gonna be monitored or anything, or would that have anything to do with the project? I mean, some of these wells are right near the road.
No, that's not part of a typical MassDOT project unless we anticipate that there's gonna be a direct impact to wells.
I don't remember there any being within a right of way. That was. Yeah. So no, doesn't affect things.
How far away is it, okay to have your well from the road? I just measured mine today and it's 17 feet.
Well, move it.
What? What do you say?
I said move it.
Move it, yeah. No, I'm just wondering because I can't tell what's gonna happen to my property here, but it looks like they might come into the driveway a little bit.
Well, we'll
It's right
show you in a
on top of
few
the
minutes.
driveway.
No, we'll show you in a few minutes. But no, I don't know anything about wells when it comes to
That'd be
this.
a zoning setback, I'm
Yeah, I
not
was
sure.
gonna say that.
Okay,
In
so
town.
what they said was it's a zoning setback that may be something in town, whether it's grandfathered in or not, I'm not sure, but these are the sorts of questions that we're gonna have to write down and get back to you on.
I
Kitty?
have two.
Yes?
So first off is, you said it's gonna start next spring. Do you guys have any idea, and I know this is construction and things get extended further and further, but how long do you think from start to finish, roughly, will the whole project take? And then my second question is, so telephone poles, and I know nobody else cares about this but me because I have my flags up there. Where are they gonna go? Because I would love to have them uniquely, not uniquely, but nice and uniform all the way down and make them look pretty and everything like that, so, for the sponsor flags and the American flag. So I'm just curious where the telephone poles are actually going.
Yeah, those are shown on the plan, so we can.
They are,
certainly
okay.
Go over those with
So
you.
then how long will this, do you think the actual project will take from
It's
start
on
to
your
finish?
schedule, I think, 6 months-ish, or?
I mean,
No, I think it's a lot more.
yeah, the vast majority of the work will be completed probably in one construction season.
Yeah, that's-
But MassDOT projects are typically longer
Yeah, I
than-
mean like the real work where everyone's annoyed because there's construction everywhere and detours and whatever, like the actual bulk
Yeah, we would
of the
expect to
work.
be substantially complete, probably within one full construction season, but likely extend into a second construction season.
So that would mean,
So it'd be November.
yeah, so from that, March or April to November of 23 would be where the major impacts, until we get it to what they said there about substantial completion, which just doesn't include grass strips and maybe the, signage and all sorts of stuff to get it to its final condition. Luke?
Is there still conduit going in?
There is. So there's, we had a member of our board who's still on the committee that led off every meeting asking about conduit because it is not something the Mass DOT will pay for because it is aesthetic improvement. So it's not part of what they would fund. So meaning lights out there on Main Street. However, we are going to be installing conduit in the sidewalk. So there's going to be about 500 feet section that it stands right now that we're going to be putting conduit in, because why not now? It's cheap to put it in now, and if we eventually come up with the money as a town and come up with a plan and come up with after another meeting where we say we're going to put these low profile lights to have some lighting for some section of Main Street, we'd be able to just send wires through and be able to hook up the lights. So yes, there'll be conduit, not all the way through, because it was going to be more expensive to do that, and I think the energy level to light up the entire Main Street was not there, because we do have some street lights, but to have some sort of nice lighting in the future was something we wanted to put some thought into and some infrastructure in, so that we could connect to it if we so choose to in the future.
And that area is primarily around the town building area, so.
Yeah. So it was first Tom, then Al. Tom?
The intersection I'm most familiar with is the Brigham Street intersection. And trucks have a real hard time. Well, my general question is about trucks. Big trucks, 16 wheeler. The trucks have a really hard time turning that corner and almost coming from any direction except straight across from Elm Street. What is being done there to lessen that problem?
Sure, I'm going to let TEC in a sec talk about these specifics, but that's another thing that we talked a lot about, is what to do about Brigham Street. We had conversations of, do we try to make things one way? Do we, things that were going to make some people happy and some people mad, and it's such a weird topography over there, as we all know. I mean, that road, when you turn onto it, it's up in the air, the sidewalk is a mess and all that. So we labored over what best to do, and the best we came up with is opening it up more. So you want to go into that a little bit about what we're doing over there?
Sure. I would know the problem maneuver that you're talking about, Tom, is taking a right or a left out of Brigham.
Coming from Rutland or coming from Gardner and turning onto Brigham. Big trucks have a tough time.
Turning onto Brigham, I see.
You don't have to.
They shouldn't be
now.
allowed to go down Brigham.
Yeah, I think we don't expect a large volume of trucks down Brigham. I think it's an occasional large.
No,
I live
there's a
on it.
lot of them.
I live on it. In fact, what happened was we made a very nice replacement bridge, and many of the trucks coming from the south come up and go over around the back of the pond, over that old bridge, and then down Brigham, or New Westminster Road, whatever it's called. And we've broken all those habits, and they don't do that anymore. They come up to the center of town and then turn down Brigham.
So what we're doing is on the south side, so it would be the non-town common side, Lou's house. We are tightening it up over there. So basically, we're putting a wall with a fence that he's going to have over there, and what that does is just opens it up and makes it a better turning radius to be able to come in, because that's really all we can do, because we have a house there, and the grade comes so steeply up as you start to climb. When you get onto Brigham Street, there's just limited things you can do. So I think we did the best we can by basically just opening it up a little bit more, but that's
The flashing light pole is not getting moved though, right?
Correct.
And that's the problem. Big rigs hit it all the time, literally. I mean, you're not actually solving that issue as far as a tractor trailer taking a right on the Brigham. They're still gonna hit the pole. Like, I've seen it multiple times.
sure you live there, man.
And it's the funniest thing ever, because like, what are you doing? And I've almost been hit by 4 of them, 3 times coming up the hill and 1 time going down the hill. They're on both sides of the road, coming in front of Dave's house, around the corner, big rigs continuously, all the stuff in my van goes flying because I gotta jack my brakes, and I'm only doing 25. And all of a sudden I got a big rig right in front of me.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
I know that's a whole separate issue as far as that goes, but if you're not moving that pole back, you're cutting out the whole embankment in front of my house, shaving the corner, which is great for line of sight, but if that big, huge pole isn't, when you're digging up everything, you're not gonna shift it back a few feet, that's just stupid in my view. I mean, there's no reason to leave it out in the middle. You're gonna have like 4 feet from the pole to the wall that's going in, of just nothing. Why, you're gonna dig up the ground, you're gonna dig up everything, why not move it back? And then big rigs could turn. I said to put it over on the common side. If you put it over, if you actually move that light pole over to the common side, off into the grass a little, problem solved all the way around. Like, that was, I mean, I mentioned that at town meetings, the Senate meetings before, and it got shot down for some reason.
I think one thing the town could look to pursue as separate from this project certainly is the truck exclusion study there on Brigham.
Yeah.
If it's recognized as a concern.
So, you know, in the event that I know we've talked about this before with Lou, and, you know, it not making it to the final design, like a number of things, like we were, you know, sort of doing our best for a lot of these things. But, you know, changes like that, I guess at this point, are frowned on by the Mass DOT, or, I mean, what are your just sort of thoughts as we get into discussion of these things tonight?
Well, we're actually gone through PS&E,
Which is plans, specifications,
which is
and
an
estimate.
and we're actually, so the next step honestly is to create contract office, so pretty far along the process.
Yeah, I mean,
to make those changes.
Listen, I don't, whatever, ain't my problem. What you need to do is contact Google and any other GPS out there and make it so that tractor trailer trucks can't go down that road. Cause that's the problem,
Yep.
is GPS takes you that way. And all these big rig drivers, they all use GPS now.
Yep.
And so, that'll basically solve the issue.
Okay, was it, Al, was it you? Did you have something else?
Yeah, somebody brought up earlier how, or if they thought any water wells would be adversely affected by the road. And I'm just curious as to septic systems. And if your final design, once it's put out on the table, if notification contained in those, that information would say if you feel your septic system has been adversely impacted by the construction on the road, et cetera, where they go for appeal rights, how they do this, how they do that, in order to prove that their septic was adversely affected.
So, you know, those are the sorts of comments we want to hear. If people have questions about that, we don't have all the answers, and we're not all the committees and boards put into one. So when we receive a question specific to a property, that's when we can reach out to our colleagues in other committees and boards to say, hey, somebody's got a question, Board of Health, somebody's got a question on this. This is their property, this is where the new line's gonna go, this is how far it is away from this. Is this okay? Is there anything else we have to do? So that's where to do it is tonight as we discuss that. So I don't know how else to answer that. Don?
If there is some critical item like that, and you're not gonna do the construction for a year and a half, could it be a town-funded move the pole project, completely independent of this project? Get it done before anybody ever shows up for the new work. And after having spent this much money, if there's, on the process that's gone through, we might be able to fund that ourselves, separate, distinct from the big project. Get it done, get it out of the way, when they show up, it's all resolved.
Maybe? Yep.
Can we get a quote on it?
Yeah, we have to.
Move, lose pole, I just took a measurement, and it's 9 feet from the pole's, house side of the pole to the face of the wall.
The face of the new wall?
Face of the new wall, 9 feet.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
know.
grass.
I know there's a big space in between it.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's something we can look into. Any other questions? Okay. All right, well, seeing none, just, you know, if you we'd really like to further this discussion so people can sort of mill around and,
There's also, pardon me for interrupting, there's a sign-in sheet going around, I don't know where that's at, someone can hold it up, but if you're here, could you please make sure that'll help us out as well too, if you could sign that before we
sure,
go.
but anyway, please feel free to either call us over if you don't want to get up, that's fine too, or come on over to these, we can find your property, any questions you sort of have, but, you know, please do that.
Right-of-way plan, also right here.
Hey, neighbor.
Same side of the road,
Yeah.
okay? So somebody just comes to this table and sit down with
We'll be
us,
right
but
there.
they've all got the same place.
One was the road, greenhouse type one,
Okay, so,
right at the corner.
all right. So basically what you would like to know is what's going on in front?
I live at the corner of Brigham.
So I live here, and they live here, and they live.
There's not gonna be
Are
any
you on
lights
this
next
page,
to me.
Elaine? I'm 1-7. Are you on this page?
I did up Halloween, but
This is the Curtis Rec Field. On this, the opposite side of the road from you is where the shared use path, 10-foot shared use path, 5-foot grass strip starts at the Curtis Rec Field. Comes down to here. So in front of 7 Road, there's a new crosswalk.
That's you guys. Yeah, it is.
And then from there to the south, the shared use path continues on that side.
So how much land do we lose from where we are now to where?
There's no loss of land. This is only a temporary easement for grading. So to taper back the grade from the back of the new shared use path down to meet the existing grade.
There's a rock wall back in here, so unless you're gonna be filling, it's not temporary. To push the sidewalk back, you're in the void. And it's not temporary, because then you're on our
I
property.
think because of the vegetation.
We're
here,
only
the survey-
13 feet from the front of our house to the asphalt.
How far back is the wall that you're referring to?
Well,
This is the limit grade. So the temporary easement is typically offset 5 to 10 feet from the limit grade to allow the contractor to do the work. That's the temporary easement limit. Okay. And this wider dash line is the limit grade. So that's where the long one would tie in.
so what is this actually being used for? Because there's trees in here.
Just rights for access to the contractor.
Or they can park down on the property.
I wouldn't expect. It's not
We want
vehicles.
to put like erosion control.
Yeah, all that stuff.
So,
So is that, just to go on that, so if this is, this dotted line that's going across from my finger is here, this is the limit of grade, so basically what they're tapering down to, down through there, is that rock wall still a concern that you're talking about?
It's mainly from, where's this, my map is
So
different.
there's a wood fence that's right,
Existing edge of road is here.
Right.
Right where that shrub tree is.
I've taken most of the fence out, it's a split rail and it's all rotted. There's some scrub trees in there and then there's some bigger trees back here.
How far back from the fence is the wall? 3 feet.
If you can find where the fence is, it's not really there.
It's depicted right here.
yep, but, right, so wherever it was, through here, you're just a few feet behind where that rock wall is. And what is the scale on this? So it's 20, so this is, that's shown, maybe a 10-foot area. I mean, I don't think it's as dramatic as you're thinking. I mean, just, you know, we
Not dramatic, it's traumatic. We didn't know this was happening.
yeah, we just bought the house last November and it was not disclosed by the realtor or the prior owner or, big surprise.
And our driveway is basically only wide enough for one car. We have 4 and 5 trailers, so over here, there is a clear spot between the trees, and I made a circular driveway, so I go out there. So I'm not gonna be able to do that. I have equipment and trailers and trucks, and I won't be able to cross that sidewalk once it's built. And my plan was to widen our driveway here.
which you can still do with, you know, permits and curb cut and all that sort of stuff. That doesn't restrict what you would normally be able to do. It's just, this is a, you know, project that's happening.
Where is the flashing light though?
It's where the mailbox is.
Yeah, so how are we gonna widen our driveway if it's right
You're saying you're using this as, right.
I mean, if you need another curb cut here, and there's no reason why we couldn't provide it within the context of the project.
Okay.
Just have to confirm that it wouldn't affect the location. This is an access for bicyclists from the on-road bike lane to get up onto the shared use pool. So you just have to make sure that the location.
That'll make a nice driveway.
So you won't be the first who asked this question about an additional curb cut. We actually have a town center committee member who lives on Main Street who had the exact same request because of where he brings his wood in. So the same sort of thing. And anyway, and incorporated into the design that we see now is an additional curb cut. So it's something that can be added. You know, and it makes more sense to do it while we're doing this because then otherwise we're building something and then you're ripping it out and paying for it. So this is why we're doing this.
And long before this starts, I had planned to, where's our, I don't know where we are.
This is the driveway.
I had planned to widen our driveway by maybe 10 feet.
Yep. Yeah, and same thing. You know, I mean, same thing I said, which is you would have to apply for a curb cut to be able to do that anyway. Just because we have a new project doesn't mean you can't do that. It's just what John said was some of these things that are on here aren't because we put them on. It's because to get the funding here, we have to have bike lanes based on Mass DOT rules. So if you're going to come off a bike lane, like John said, you have to have a way to come off it with a certain grade and a certain slope and all that sort of thing, so it's not like a dangerous turn on. So as long as, which it doesn't look like you are, as long as that's not infringing on that, then just do it in the future.
And I don't know if anyone studied actual present use, but 70% of the pedestrian traffic is on the other side of the road. They don't start off over here and then cross over. They're off. I don't know if they cross over in town or if they live on the other side, but very rarely do we see people on this side of the
I know,
street.
that's kind of odd, because nobody ever walks, very few people walk down our side of the street, ever.
Well,
Always
part of
on the
this is,
other side.
I mean, you know, the safety improvements was the point of the project in the first place, and connectivity. And so to be able to do that based on the widths that we had on one side and the widths that we had on the other side and where we had to turn, and that further along there may be a future senior center and or public safety building up here, all those considerations sort of came in on the walkability of the entire corridor. So that's why you'll see some of these elements in there. And they were put in, yes, some by the engineer, yes, some by the town center committee, but also by Mass DOT, who said, hey, to fund this, we have these certain things that we think and want and need you to do, and that was sort of one of the considerations.
So existing curb is which line? Okay, from that curb to the front of our house is 13.
Is this your house or is this? This is 7.
13 feet. Okay. How much is the sidewalk coming back into our front door?
The sidewalk in this case is actually, this is one of those areas where the curb is coming in toward the road. So you'll have more grass than you have today.
I'll order the grass.
Basically, it's just taking away the breakdown, right, on both sides.
So one more pass with the mower.
You're gonna be putting
A bigger sidewalk up on the
sidewalk and the
side.
bike lanes on the breakdown.
So it was in the beginning. So this one is the temporary easement. This is the temporary one.
I'm here.
Hi, Don. How are you?
So there's no,
This is just
the line type looks similar between a permanent easement and an existing easement, just the labels that distinguish it. So if you had a specific question as to whether one was a permanent or a temp, just you can ask that and I can point that out to you.
okay.
So just to restate it, work doesn't extend to the solid black line, but the easement for construction goes to there.
So what is for hay over there?
Maybe, or
It's
just,
basically a buffer to allow the contractor some flexibility.
you know, whatever's disturbed is restored, but that's not part of the grading plan or where new elements of the project are gonna go within that line. It's just, you know, as John said, you need room to work.
Is more information going to be coming out in terms of donating the land?
Excuse me, one second, which is a question.
sorry.
Sorry, I know you're on a roll there.
I'm deaf on this side, but I didn't hear.
Is there going to be more information coming out in terms of whether donating to the land, to the town property that's going to be the temporary easement, or how, is there going to be any kind of notification, or how does that all, what's the next step with that?
So, did you receive a letter of intent?
Yes.
I'm sure you
And
did.
met with Dave Nixon to have
Oh, good.
a chat about it.
Okay.
But it wasn't very clear to me, you know, I mean, I've got the letter, chatted with Dave, but I don't really know what the next step would be.
So that's basically the town's appeal to the property owners to donate if you're willing to. If you're willing to, you can sign that form, and that would allow the town to take that parcel for zero damages, for no compensation. The alternative is the town would have to appraise it, pay for those appraisal costs, and then potentially pay for compensation to an abutter.
Right, and clearly, I mean, it's in the town's best interest to have it donated, but it's not clear to the homeowner what they're giving up if they just go ahead and donate it. So that's what I'm wondering, is there some way, some in-between way to figure out what that's all about?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, you're not giving up anything, you're giving up the rights during that temporary period, so it's a 3-year period typically. So you're giving rights to MassDOT and their contractor to access that area for that 3-year period. And then after that 3-year period, it terminates and, yeah.
That would be true, I mean, the construction company's going to be using that, whether you agree to donate it or whether you want some kind of compensation for it. So how do you know, you know, I mean, shy of the town having to hire somebody to come in and give you an appraisal, I don't know, I just feel like, you know, it's not very, it's kind of muddy what the...
You're saying the value, or how do you know what the impacts are? I guess I'm...
Well, my understanding is the impact, it will be temporary for us. We're at 41 Main Street.
Okay.
But in the meantime, there's, I mean, I don't know, am I giving up $1 million for 3 years, or just donating, you know, I mean, I don't have any sense of that.
Sure, I mean, it's hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, usually, I mean, it's tough. It varies wildly depending on the neighborhood. Right. So, I mean, in a relatively rural area like this, temporary easements are typically, like Dan said, on the order of hundreds of dollars of compensation over that 3-year period. It's, you know, as not being an appraiser, it's tough to say exactly what it would be, but yeah.
Well, I will, because I met with, so Shirley Shiver is the Mass DOT right-of-way guru, and David, the acting town administrator, and I met with her on a meeting that I just really tried to pay attention for those 2 hours, because she was talking right-of-way, and it was tough.
I get distracted just listening to her whole
It's tough. So right, exactly. So anyway, but I kept it together, and you know, my best to understand it all, and her description of our town and the impacts limited is what she's saying, because this is a project that's very limited in right-of-way impacts compared to some large projects, which is a large project, was we needed to understand how much it might cost the town, worst case, because we may have to go to town meeting and say, hey, we need 50 grand, we need 100 grand, we need whatever number that was going to be. And so she sort of quoted us, you know, X amount of properties times hundreds of dollars to get us to a certain threshold that we might see. So that's why I can say with some confidence that the numbers aren't just sort of made up here. I don't know exactly what they are, but they're in that scale.
Yeah, oftentimes the appraisals cost more than the temporary easements themselves. Yeah.
to know whether you're talking about a couple $100 or a couple $1 million, you know, so
I get it.
I just wanted to have some idea what that was all about. Okay, that was my main question for now, anyway.
Jump back in or what?
Good for now.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so I have a question.
Yeah.
So I'm here next to them.
Yeah.
And I was the one that asked the question about the well.
Yep.
So I also have 2 driveways on each side of a driveway on each side of my house. My well
here and shown here.
Right. So my well is like right here. So
This is the driveway.
yeah, and it's in the middle. It's in the driveway. It is. It's in the driveway, right in the middle of the driveway, and it's 17 feet from the beginning of the road.
So the road is here.
Yeah. So, yeah, roughly, I measured it today. It was hard not to have two people, you know, it kept moving and everything, but it's roughly, so I just was wondering, you know, if you say we're not gonna lose anything, so if this is if the black line is just a temporary thing, this dotted line, what is this line?
Yeah, so this line is the limit that we would be reconstructing the driveway. And this side is a little bit less. So just based on knowing the scale of this plan, this is about 5 feet back from the driveway. So that's where that driveway would be constructed.
Which means our work, our new work, would extend 5 feet into your property from the existing edge of the road.
Okay, so.
Isn't much.
But I don't, when you put a well in, you have to be so many feet away from the road. If, you know, in this case, when I bought this house, the well was there.
I'm sure, I imagine
Because
so.
my septic, you know, I have a very small parcel, so they had to put it so many feet from the septic back there. So,
in this case, though, the road is, again, remember, the road is coming in.
Yeah,
away
okay.
from your property.
All right, okay.
So the back of sidewalk here is actually 5 feet into the road from the edge to the...
Okay.
So what we're talking about is impacts, but this is all your driveway. So we're impacting it to reconstruct your driveway to here, but the actual new road's way beyond where it exists now.
So that's the same thing here?
Yeah, so we're actually bringing the road further away from the well, which hopefully is a good thing.
Yeah, can't be bad.
Okay. So the front of my house, I'm not going to really lose anything now.
No, you're going to gain.
Okay. My whole worry was people, I mean, neither of us have much front yard. They have less than I do. My front door is actually on the side of my house, thank goodness. It's not on 68.
Yep.
It's, you know, but, you know, I was just kind of worried how close that was going to be.
Yes, you'll gain about 5 feet of green space.
So the sidewalk is actually going to be in front of, it's going to start in front of their house and then go up? Is that what you said?
Starting way down there.
On our side of the road?
On your side of the road, yeah, the shared use path, so it's really a wide sidewalk that bicyclists and pedestrians can use. So that wide sidewalk is going to come up from Elm and Brigham to just in front of 7, and then it narrows beyond that to 5.5-foot sidewalk.
Okay.
The rest of the way.
And the 5.5 feet is because it has to allow for handicapped, right?
Yeah, that's just for pedestrians. The bicyclists aren't intended to use that narrow sidewalk.
And where's the
Right here. They only flash if someone wants to cross, they press the button, they flash for a relatively short period, allow them to cross.
Oh, okay. So it's not like
It's
for
a-
watching TV at night, there's going to be
Not unless there's a lot of people walking.
Well, so you know, we talked a lot about that too as a committee. We're like, okay, do we get something that every time a car passes or gets close to it? We just thought that over time people would just get fatigued and they wouldn't pay attention to it anymore, like anything else, like you know, smelling the farm. Eventually, you just forget about it. So the point is here is that it's only going to happen when somebody presses the button, so that hopefully it makes more sense because people are seeing it less, and so it comes up into your view when you pay attention to it.
And it's a warning device. It's not a stop. It's not a regulatory device. So.
Oh, okay. So I have one more question. Last year, we had put like a gravel drive here. There's a driveway here and a driveway here, and then over here we had put a gravel driveway. But I did get a driveway permit from the town, so there is tar. They tarred it. So are they gonna? Would they just?
The curb opening is wider than so this is the proposed curb opening.
Okay.
At the existing end of room, it's about.
All right. I'm not sure where that other driveway was, but we had it. It's
There's the
kinda-
property line, so
Okay, so
it's like from there.
it's right, yeah, like right here. Would they be able to extend? Because it's actually there, but we did it so we could get other vehicles out of the backyard.
I think that would be something to discuss with Public Works to see what it would work out that permit process.
Yeah, no, I don't, I mean, yeah, I mean, just like I said before, which is like, that would be a normal request in the event that this is what things already look like, meaning the proposed conditions we're talking about. If that's what you just happened to move to the house and said, hey, I want this wider, you would just go through the normal process of going to the town and
But
say,
I already
hey.
did that.
I know, well,
I've already, it's already there.
Yeah.
And it's already part of the landscape, because they came, I had the contractor come, he did it, he dug it up, and put stone, and then there's tar actually going to the road.
right, so that would actually stop here, and there'd be a portion of it that would be, is that grass? So where her paved area is here, it would be grass from here to here, and then a new sidewalk. So what you're saying is you'd want to extend the pavement further, and then cross the sidewalk to get on to the street, right?
Yeah, but, yeah. This driveway here is,
23 feet wide.
it's 2 cars wide right now.
Well, it's going to be, well, it's proposed to be 23 feet wide, so that's a lot bigger than 2 cars.
Okay. Well, maybe I wouldn't need it. I don't know. The problem was we had trailers in the backyard that we needed to get out. So we had that put in. But
It's pretty big.
yeah, okay. All right. No, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm just looking at the plans myself, you know? I mean, we don't study these things either, you know? That's why we're here.
So, we leave this with you and you're gonna take care of the extra curb cut?
No, we have to apply to have that, to do it, permit to do it, and then when they come to do construction, they'll see it's already widened, there's already a second driveway there.
The thing to remember, the goal is to have the plans perfect, basically locked in when it goes to construction, but there is some flexibility during construction that you could have a conversation with the resident engineer and say, you see what my driveway's doing here, it really needs to be 2 feet wider. They can adjust that in the field. We're trying to get it as close to locked in as we can before it goes down.
Right, but those are little changes. And unless you're going on vacation for 3 months while that's working in front of your house, I think you're going to be, it feels like you're going to be active while they're doing the work. And I don't think it, what's that? I guess it depends on whether you donate your property.
Do we have to fill out that sheet tonight and give it to you?
You don't have to do anything, but yeah, you can mail it, that's easier. Probably noodle on all the things we've talked about here, make sure you're comfortable with it, but yeah.
It's my problem.
We're on 17 down the road.
What I got here is, I think you have to take another look at this tree right here because the roots are coming up and it's lifts up the breakdown lane and give you a driveway and all that stuff. You take a look at it. And I'm gonna need a curb cut. So this is another tree. Yeah, so the existing
We're just trying to figure out, we can't, you know, I don't think you guys have been, I don't.
There's a heating by today?
It's been heating all the time, the trees are growing.
So, Lynn, do you want that tree or you don't want
I was just saying, I think that
Well, they remove it and they can replace it with something else. I just don't know if it's going to continue rotting away at the sidewalk.
I mean, one of the things we just heard in general, obviously not specific to your property necessarily, but during the earlier public meetings was preserve trees to the extent we can.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
If that tree is causing a problem and you didn't have a problem with it taken out, we could certainly do that.
I mean, I can live with it. I just think it's going to cause more damage over time.
Well, I think the bump out of the curb, right? Isn't that that's the intent of it, right? Is to get the tree further away. If you're bumping the curb out 5 feet from there,
Yeah.
where it's right on top of it right now. I mean, that's I know. Okay. Okay.
Not going to hurt you.
I got it. Yep.
And I need a curb cut right in here. Because I need to get access to my property back here. It's not a drive, it's just access. Right in here. I have a fence that runs along my property and I have a like an opening, and that's where I would need to put.
I would say this is the most common comment. Buddies have started 3 times at this table, and I've heard it a bunch of times before.
People are used to not having curb there.
People don't, yeah, well, think about look at the gas station, right? The gas station's like, wait, we have one giant curb cut for 100 feet. And now, if you look at the way the gas station's configured, you know, we've made it safe because it's not safe. We all know how to do it and park on the side, drive through there and all that, but we've changed things on this design to make it safer so that not everybody can just come in all directions. So eventually, over time, the intent is to just make it safer so everyone knows that.
Can I come here? I know the engineer, it's very clear for them.
Do you want to go to your property again?
I can go, but there's just a general comment about this, what we got in the mail and what was here.
Yep.
As an engineer, it's very clear to you, you can see everything. As you know, we all got our different profession and we see, you know.
Yep, that's why we did tonight.
So, what we, I think I can speak for other people. What we see here is very confusing because you got all this gray line with what is existing. You got some dark lines, you got the easement, and I think if we have that really clear, I don't know, maybe even color coded, what's going on and what it's going to look like, I think it will be very helpful for us to understand. Because I'm still looking, I'm not sure, where is the curve? How wide is the driveway? It's not clear. Because there are too many lines.
Yeah, I agree. It's a complicated plan.
Busy
So
plan.
for you, are you used to it? You work maybe, I'm sure you work daily with this.
I stared at this for hours until I could figure out what I was looking at. I wasn't quite sure.
And I don't know what is the cost or what it will take if you just click on the computer and you print out different colors and done.
It's a little more complicated than that.
I assume it is, but for us to be like with full-hearted, yes, go for it. It will help us.
Yeah, where are you at?
17.
Do you have any questions?
No, I've been listening to everybody. My questions are answered.
Very good.
Here, we got you. We got you.
So, I mean, you see all here, there's the grass. Okay, so it's the gravel, the grass. I mean, this grass there's no grass here in the final plan, right? It's the road, it's the parking, and then 10 feet side.
It's grass and then concrete walk.
Yeah, so there's curbing, grass, and then concrete walk.
There is a grass in here in final.
5 feet grass between the shared use path and the road is 5 feet grass.
I thought we bought it no grass at all.
No, we had to. The Mass DOT's comments was, you know,
We have to do
we have
it.
to.
Okay, so we bought something and they
They told us.
I gotta get my stuff under the paper.
So where is the
I gotta
existing
get my stuff under the map.
walk and where is the future of the line?
The existing back of walkway is about the same. But the walkway gets a lot wider.
That's what my understanding.
Thank you very much for
Okay.
coming to our table
Thank you.
and answering our
Oh, yeah,
questions.
right?
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right, have a good night.
But I think it'll be clear for everybody if you say this is the existing. Because what is this gravel here? This is not going to be gravel.
That's existing.
Right. The grass here.
So yeah, these labels are all, the lighter labels are existing.
Okay. So, see you guys later. Okay. Right, on the gray line.
I don't even talk to them.
Well, you don't see what is the actual, what is the proposal, what is the future. This is the existing one.
No, it's called out. It's just parking typically when used to reading plans.
Right.
So this is, yeah, this leader's pointing to the new granite curb.
The double line?
Yes. Yep. And then this area is loam and seed, 4-inch loam and seed. So that would be between here and here. 4-inch thick. 4-inch thick loam and seed. And then back here, 10-foot cement concrete shared use path. So that's between.
So it's say when I'm really slept, I can see all this numbers cross my eyes and
That's why we did tonight. Many people had the same questions you did. I don't actually think, and I don't think what you said is a bad idea. I don't think if we color coded it and wrote a bunch of notes on there, a lot of people would still understand. I think you need to be doing what you're doing with us now, which is, this is my house, what's going on in front of it, and all we have to do is show you 3 or 4 lines, and I think you kind of get it. Those 5 people just got it. So I think that that's a beneficial thing of doing it tonight, is that, because you can't, I know, I still,
now, even now that what Barbara, my wife, mentioned about our well is really close. I mean, it's our well around here.
Yep.
And this is
Yeah, so again, this dash line here is the limit where we'll be putting new loam down and reseeding. There's not a significant grade change there because the back of walkway isn't really changing. But in order to tie the grade back in gently, we put new loam down and seed it.
and then nothing from this line to that line. It's just that temporary easement. So it feels to me like limited impacts, and as long as we, I think the thing that we ask, people to do at times on things like this is, put a stake out there that painted orange of where your well is. That's the sort of thing that can be helpful, so that nothing happens to it that shouldn't. But it feels to me like what you just described in that area is very limited impacts.
So yeah, then it steps down from the back to your existing walkway, so you can access the shared use path.
Will there be, during the construction period for this easement, will there be fencing put up there?
Oh, yeah.
No, there's no proposed fencing there. There's fencing, a short section of fencing between the tree and the work area.
Oh, just to protect the tree?
To protect the tree, correct.
But there's no...
No, this project does not have that.
Okay.
And you guys have seen, you've driven by projects before where yes, maybe they have fencing, yes, when everyone has a water line service, if they're ripping up water lines, everyone's got temporary water that's going along the road, and our project is much less impacted than sort of other ones like that. It's going to be disruptive because it's going to be in front of your house, but you shouldn't be restricted on how you get in and out, besides a couple of very, very active days that are directly in front of your house.
And what's this gravel here?
Existing.
That's like, is that the driveway?
So what is
So are you gonna have access here, or is that gonna be?
This is a driveway cut.
So it will be a driveway.
Nia brought that up many months ago.
And then this is
not in town center.
I didn't say you did. I know the deal. All right, it's all good. But it's the same comments that many people have had tonight. I mean, yours is the first of. You were basically a trendsetter, because a lot of these are going to be going in. I can tell from the conversations here.
And it's still fine.
It's in the plans, man.
No, I'm talking about the still.
Yeah, I mean, there are considerations that need to be made. These guys looked at what we had talked about, you as a private citizen sort of coming in. One of the discussions we had maybe before you walked over is there's a bike lane that goes down a portion that has to cross back over. If the extension of a driveway needs to go in a spot where the cross of the bike lane, maybe it can't. So it's not always a yes. But that's the sort of thing that we have to have a conversation with each property about. But that's not everywhere. It's not like we're crossing all over the place.
Right. Okay. So the ball line is the double line is the curve.
That's the edge of the sidewalk on that side. Yeah, that's the curve on the road. No, I got
I know, maybe grass will be green and the sidewalk is gray and the road is black. This is that's something very visual. I mean, I'm very visual. I'm working on on daily visual thing. That's the way I work. What is my understanding? But I also understand it can be very expensive.
Well, that's not just it. Like if we made it green and made that gray, but we might not be able to see the existing condition lines beneath it. So it's like you got to pick the best way to present it.
I mean, if there are individual property owners that would be especially helpful too to have those colored. I mean, making the lines colored is easy.
Right.
Shading the thing is more time consuming. Right. Just to change the proposed line work to certain colors and add a small legend. We can potentially do that for certain.
But it's depending if everything went smooth and everybody signed it. Need to be added.
Needs to be added, right? I understand.
Well, thank you very much. That the drive force behind.
Just gotta get there. We're at the, we're rounding the final corner. This is a big one though. This right of way with a lot of different properties and a lot of different explanations, and people become a lot more interested when we get to this spot. When it's right in front of your house and you have to hear about it. So we just want to make sure we may do this again if there's not enough people out here today, because we can't have this being held up for too long because we then lose our window. We just don't want to lose that. It's $5 million.
But the resident will be an easement, not just literally ease about everything. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, go for it. Not stress about it. Okay, great.
All right. All right.
I just wanted to say thank you, because I live at 31 Main Street with the hedge up front.
Yep.
And they're not going to touch my hedge. So I was thrilled. I just wanted you to know that, because we've been there 4 generations. And it's my great-grandfather who planted the hedge originally. So it's kind of like a family heirloom,
Well, I think I know you would have been the first question tonight if we were.
Yeah, but yes, immediately. But no, I just wanted to say thank you, because I appreciate the consideration. And as far as the donation paper, when I sign that, do I bring it here? Or?
You do, yeah. You bring it to David Nixon, who's the acting town administrator, and so he'll be able to take it. And we have what we're doing is we have, for each property, we have a checklist that SDOT makes us keep, which starts with us first sending you the letters of intent, and then whether we receive a certificate of donation or some other correspondence on there. So everything going to one place, which is David and our executive administrative assistant, is the best way to do it. And then they can also make copies so that you have it for your files and all that sort of stuff as well. All right?
Yeah. Again, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks for coming tonight.
Oh, you're after the